Hey guys, what's good? Welcome back. Hope you're doing well. Man, I don't know about you guys, but I have thoroughly enjoyed the first 3 rounds of this season. There's been so many high-scoring games, close contests, huge upsets, storylines. It's been all go for the first 3 weeks, so I do hope you've been enjoying it as much as I have. Anyway, let's get stuck into my tips for round 4. Now, as always, we do start with the results from last week. So last week we managed to tip 5 out of 8 games. The Rabbitohs didn't turn up for the full 80 against the Roosters. The Storm had no problem scoring points on the Titans, but ended up conceding more. And then obviously the Warriors got the job done against the Cowboys. I will always take a Warriors W over an incorrect tip, so happy days there. And if you don't know by now, you probably should. We are running a subscribers tipping comp. All the details to join are shown on screen now. And don't worry, if you are joining late, you will be allocated tips up until the round you join, so you won't be starting at 0, but obviously the sooner the better. And we have a new leader. The Joker is currently holding down the overall position of the JDB Selects tipping comp. Shout out to you, mate. Good luck to everyone this week. Let's get stuck into the games. Kicking things off on Thursday, we have the 16th place Parramatta Eels taking on the 5th place Penrith Panthers at CommBank Stadium in Sydney. Looking back at last week, the Eels went down 34 points to 30 to Manly at Brookie. Super close game there, and they almost snatched it at the end, but it wasn't to be. As for the Panthers, they enjoyed the bye, so will no doubt be rested and ready to go for this week. The Eels will likely be without Matt Dury and Jack Murchie, but do get the big boost of Ryan Madison returning to the fray after missing the first 3 rounds due to suspension. Now, looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Panthers have won 4 of their last 5 games at CommBank, however have lost 66% of their games to Parramatta at the stadium since it opened in 2019. Another interesting stat for this game is the Eels have conceded on average 26 points per game, while the Panthers are only averaging 11. Now, I know that number may be inflated because the Panthers have played 1 less game, but I do think that proves to be the difference in this one. I think the Panthers do have the superior defense, and the Eels have been leaking points. So I'm going to take the Panthers here by 1 to 12. Never count the Eels out, but they are stuck in a wee bit of a hole. The first of the 2 Friday fixtures has the 13th place Melbourne Storm taking on the 17th placed West Tigers at Amy Park in Melbourne. Last week, the Storm were upset 38 points to 34 by the Gold Coast Titans. They were leaking points, they were lacking defensive resilience, and were just full of unforced errors. As for the Tigers, they lost 26 points to 22, going down to the Canterbury Bulldogs, despite 3 late tries in 4 minutes to give the Dogs a wee bit of a scare. Good news for Storm fans, Munster is back. Bad news for Storm fans, Jerome Hughes is out. So Hughes is expected to miss at least this game with a grade 2 dangerous contact, but obviously having Munster back will give them a big boost in attack, but attack hasn't been their problem, it's been their defense. Isaiah Papali returns from suspension, and Dane Laurie, Kim Amalo and Jake Simpkin are expected to be available for selection for the Tigers. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, Melbourne have won 4 straight. The Tigers have only beaten Melbourne twice at Amy Park since 2000, with the Storm winning 12 out of 14 games. Now, that's not to say the Tigers haven't been competitive. The last 2 games they're being decided by just 2 points, and the Tigers actually came away with the 2 points in one of those games. Now, it's hard to tip Melbourne at the minute, but I am going to stay true and take the Storm here 1 to 12. I don't like what I see from the Tigers. I also don't like what I see from the Storm, but if anyone can turn it around, I think it'll be Craig Bellamy, so Melbourne for me, 1 to 12 at home. And then finally on Friday we have a top of the table showdown between the 2nd placed Dolphins and the 1st placed Brisbane Broncos at Suncorp Stadium, the inaugural Battle of Brisbane. The Dolphins pulled away late from the Knights, securing a 36 to 20 point victory. Brisbane also came on strong late to beat the Dragons 40 points to 18. There are no new major injury concerns for Brisbane, except obviously Corey Oates remains sidelined. As for the Dolphins, still no Jeremy Marshall-King, but they are expecting Herman Esa and Edric Lee to be available for selection, but will be without Finn Diesel, Felice Kafusi, who let the blood rush to his head after 2 very successful weeks, and is expected to miss 3 to 4 games. Now, I know this has been billed as a competitive, crazy, blockbuster clash. You know, they've already been showing the TV ads all of this week, but I don't think it's going to be close. I think Brisbane should make light work of the Dolphins, so I am going to take the Broncos here, 13+. I think they've got too much strike power and have showed their resilience coming back and fighting hard in the opening rounds. So for me, Broncos 13+. And then we only have 2 Saturday games this week, but the first of those is the 15th place North Queensland Cowboys taking on the 6th place Gold Coast Titans at Queensland Country Bank Stadium up in Townsville. The Cowboys were upset by a very game Warriors outfit, 26-12 at home, and the Titans pulled off a monumental upset over the Storm in Melbourne last week, 38-34. The Cows will still be without Petahiku and Scott Drinkwater for another week, I believe. Chester, who filled in for Drinkwater last week, I thought was outstanding, but did struggle to unleash Holmes and Taulagi, so I would like to see a bit more of that from him. No new issues for the Gold Coast. They will likely name the same team who beat Melbourne last week. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Cowboys have won 9 of the past 10 games in Townsville, with the Gold Coast's last win coming in 2013. The Cowboys have struggled to score this season. They're averaging just 15 points while leaking 24. I do think this game will be closer than the odds makers have it, but I am going to side with the Cowboys here at home, Cowboys 1-12. And the final Saturday fixture has the 10th placed South Sydney Rabbitohs hosting the 3rd placed Manly Sea Eagles at Accor Stadium in Sydney. The wrong South Sydney side turned up against the Roosters last week, but they still only lost by 2 points, going down 20 points to 18 in Allianz Stadium. As for the Sea Eagles, they scraped through against a resurgent Eels side, winning 34 points to 30 in a high-scoring back-and-forth affair. Jacob Host is expected back this week for Souths, but Shakay Mitchell is in doubt following a foot injury he sustained in the side's loss to the Roosters. Manly are expected to be at full strength. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, Souths have won 7 of 8, including 6 straight against Manly. Now, this is a very interesting stat, but Manly have only won 1 game at Accor Stadium since 2013. They've lost 12 of 13 games there, with their lone win coming against the Bulldogs back in 2020. Both sides are averaging the same amount of points conceded at 18, while the Sea Eagles have scored more, but they have enjoyed easier competition so far than Souths. I think this will be another close competitive game with a lot of points, but I am going to take Souths here by 1-12. I think Souths can beat any team on their day, they just have to turn up and play like it, so I'm picking Souths to do that this week. And kicking off the first of 3 Sunday games this week, we have the 4th placed NZ Warriors taking on the 8th placed Canterbury Bulldogs at Mount Smart Stadium in Auckland, New Zealand. The Wars convincingly beat the Cowboys 26 points to 12 up in Townsville. As for the Dogs, they almost blew a big lead to the Tigers but held on to win 26 points to 22 at Belmore. Wade Egan will miss this week's clash due to a head knock, as will Mitch Barnett, who thankfully has been cleared of serious neck injury after he left the game on a stretcher. It's a big shame and a big out for the Warriors, as both of those players have been some of their best in the opening rounds. But it's not all doom and gloom for the Warriors, as they do regain Jackson Ford and Chance Tuchel-Klukstad. There are no major injuries or issues with the Dogs, so I'm not expecting any changes to their current lineup. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Warriors have won 4 of the past 5, including 4 straight, and go into this with a 3-game winning streak in Auckland, as the Dogs haven't won here since 2014. Now, I might be kicking myself a wee bit for not taking the Wars last week, but you can goddamn guarantee that I'm going to take them this week over the Dogs at home, so Warriors 13+ for me. If you're at the game, say what's up, I'll see you there. The next game on Sunday has the 14th place Newcastle Knights taking on the 11th place Raiders at McDonald Jones Stadium. Despite being down on stars, the Knights were competitive for 60 minutes against the Dolphins, only to be blitzed late, going down 20 points to 36. The Raiders finally got their 2023 campaign underway with a gritty 24-20 point victory over the Sharks at home. Jaden Brayley, Jack Johns are expected back on deck for Newcastle this week, but Kalen Ponga, Tyson Frizzell and Daniel Saifiti are still under injury clouds. As for the Raiders, Danny Levi and Nick Kotrick are likely going to miss this week's clash after both suffering injuries against Cronulla. Josh Papali is expected back in action this week, and Jordan Raipana will be serving his final week of suspension. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, it's been fairly even in recent times, with no clear stats swinging either way, although Newcastle have only beaten the Raiders once at home since 2014. I like the Raiders in this one, so I am going to take the Raiders by 1 to 12 points. I think they'll be better now that they've got their first win out of the way. I thought they were quite frantic and looked like a side desperate for a win against the Sharks, which obviously led to some silly errors and things like that. But now that they've got that out of the way, I think they will be better and stronger. So Raiders for me, 1 to 12. And the final game of round 4 has the 9th place Dragons taking on the 12th place Cronulla Sharks at Netstrata Jubilee Stadium in Sydney. The Dragons were competitive against the Broncos last week before letting in 4 tries in the last 10 minutes to go down 40 points to 18. The Sharks fought back hard against the Raiders despite Royce Hunt spending 10 in the bin, but ultimately went down 24 points to 20 on the road. The Dragons are expected to name the same side again this week after making it through round 3 with no injuries or suspensions. And as for the Sharks, halfback Braden Trindle suffered an ankle injury in his side's loss to Canberra, and with Nico Hines still not guaranteed to return from injury, Craig Fitzgibbon may be sweating this week. Looking at the two sides head to head, the Sharks have won 7 of the past 8 games against St George, including 5 straight. The Dragons also haven't beaten Cronulla at Netstrata Jubilee Stadium since 2016. So because of that, I am going to take the Sharks here by 1 to 12. Now I will preface this by saying if both Nico Hines and Braden Trindle are out, that may influence my tips, so we'll just see how the injuries go, but as always, check back before the first game on Thursday if I have made any changes to my tips. So in summary, I am taking the Panthers 1 to 12, the Storm 1 to 12, the Broncos 13 plus, the Cowboys 1 to 12, the Rabbitohs 1 to 12, go the Warriors 13 plus, the Raiders 1 to 12, and the Sharks 1 to 12. Thanks as always for watching. As just mentioned, if I do need to change any of my tips, they will be pinned to this video before the start of the first game of the round. Hit that subscribe button, leave your predictions in the comments, let me know what you think, and I'll catch you in the next video.